We are we are discussing Hannah Arendt's main mm, conceptual that she used, main concept she used uh, in proposing her political thought. In her book, The Origins of Totalitarianism, and also in Human Condition and other books, her thinking is primarily around one idea. That idea we don't know where she got that idea, but that is coming from, or you can trace it to the literal meaning of fascism. Okay. She used the idea behind fascism to explain totalitarianism. Okay. Number one, how is she different from, how is her approach different? Her important contribution is she combined both Nazism and Stalinism. Nazism and Stalinism. I would say this in itself is an innovation, because they seem apparently on two completely different ideas, and they are supposed, Hitler and Stalin are supposed to be hating each other, though they had a pact during World War II. One is based on racism and another is based on communism. But Hannah wanted to see the similarity, or analyzed it on the basis of how, though coming from two different ideologies, are essentially the same. Okay. And she clubbed both under totalitarianism. Under totalitarianism. Totalitarianism. Okay. So how did she look at totalitarianism? She looked at totalitarianism from the literal meaning of fascism. Okay, here, how did the word fascism come into existence? Fascism came into existence from this idea. Fascism refers to a bundle of rods tied around an axe. an ancient Roman symbol of the authority of the civic magistrate. Ultimately, the word fasces comes from Latin. So what is this idea? The idea is that each rod is weak. Each rod is weak, each one. But all combined, each rod is weak, but all combined become strong, one rod. So different individuals, 1, 2, 3 like this, but it becomes a group. Group behaves like one. So this unity is the source of the strength. That is, when M1, M2, M3, okay, is becoming one capital M. Okay. It means these individuals are losing personality. Individuality ceases. Because they have become one. Okay. All became one. It is a bundle of rods. There are no individual rods. They are fused. That is how they have transformed from individuals to one collective entity. So this phenomena she called totalitarianism. And she felt what was going on under Nazism as well as Stalinism was this totalitarianism. So ruthlessness of the state was produced through destruction of the individuality. So she combined different things and looked at them under one conceptual framework. Okay. Is there some reason why these two ideologies should be clubbed under one? Yes. For example, Hitler was born in Austria, became the leader of Nazi Party in 1921, became German leader from 1933 to 45. His ideas were expressed in Mein Kampf, 1925. His ideas are essentially anti-Semitism, and Germans would and should dominate the world, and as a part of that, an inferior race of Jews should be exterminated. This he set about doing from 1941 onwards. Anti-Semitism refers to prejudice against or hatred towards the Jews. Okay, so Nazism was based on anti-Semitism. But Stalin's Russia had nothing to do with anti-Semitism. It was supposed to realize communism. Stalin, 1878 to 1953, born in Georgia. He ruled Soviet Union from 1927. And Robert Conquest estimated that by 1938, there were 7 million Russians in the labor camps, where the survival rate is 2 to 3%. So going to the labor camp means near certain death. And by 1953, the camp population was 12 millions. That was by the time he died. So many perished in labor camps because of the conditions there. But 1 million are properly executed. All in all, without having to be sent to the labor camps. So, and this has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. This is supposed to be based on a higher ideology of communism. But Hana was equating these two and clubbing both under one system of totalitarianism. Because in her view, both are producing one man out of so many men. Okay. So, from this basic idea of what constitutes totalitarianism, the basic idea being men becoming one. Okay. She devised or she defined many of her concepts. Okay. So in her conceptual framework, there are some positive concepts and there are some negative concepts. Okay. What are the positive concepts? Very important to her is the concept of plurality. She says plurality is the condition of any political life, defined by the fact that it is men and not man who live on this earth. Not man, but men. That is plurality. Plurality means living separately. Okay. And action. Action to her is the first condition of politics. The only exchange that goes directly between men, unpredictable, initiating something new and irreversible. So what one can act or be acted upon, unpredictable, irreversible, is action. So for action to be possible, there has to be plurality, space among the people. And freedom is raison d'etre of politics. It manifests in the interaction between pluralism of human beings. And political is order of existence characterized by action and speech. So essentially, plurality, action, freedom, and political are used positively, centered around the idea that there is a space among the people. And are negative concepts. Negative concepts refer to concept of totalitarianism. Totalitarianism refers to perpetual movement premised on the goal of total domination, differs from despotism. The total domination, first of all, it is a perpetual movement. It is supposed to be dynamic and total domination. In this total domination, there is nothing like private. Private is no. Private and public distinction is not there. There is no civic society. So everything comes under the state. And terror is the essence of totalitarianism, abolishes any space for human exchange, all capacity for action. And loneliness is the human condition under a totalitarian regime, even private life destroyed. Okay. And all this is guided by an ideology. To her, ideology means the logic of an idea, deducing complete reality from theoretical propositions, principle of totalitarianism. So she wants to say that totalitarian societies are created by ideologies. What is the ideology? To Hitler, Aryan supremacy. To Stalin, working class supremacy. To Hitler, destruction of the Jews and German domination. To Stalin, destruction of the rich classes. Okay, and establishment of communism. So in pursuit of this kind of ideology, they don't mind doing anything, inflicting enormous violence on the population. And ideology brings many people under their control. If it is only personal dictatorship, many will fear him and some will be loyal to him and he will control most people. That would be personal leadership. But because of ideology, similar thinking people will come. And also, more number of people will be indoctrinated into the ideology. So, one doesn't have to take commands from the leader. And because one knows going by ideology, what one is expected to do in a particular situation. So ideology gives unity of action across many people. Millions are killed, but how are millions killed? It is not that Hitler murdered anyone personally, nor Stalin used any weapon to murder a person. How did they do it? Thousands were employed in murdering people. But what is the basis of the action of these thousands? Not only that the orders were coming from the top, but that they were shaped or indoctrinated by the ideology. And here Hana looks at what is the kind of ideology. Surely this ideology doesn't have any reason. For example, anti-Semitism. How can Jews be enemies of Germany or the world? First of all, how can we say Jews are a race? Jews are the people who did not accept Jesus as the savior and so remained Jews. So Judaism is a religion. How can Jews constitute a race and then they become inferior race and they should be eliminated? How did all this come about? Is this rational? Some people said so, and Hitler thought so, and Hitler imposed it. And he looked at everything in terms of ideology. He made people to think in terms of ideology, and in making that, or he succeeded in that, in creating terror, using terror. And then he used propaganda. So propaganda is needed to indoctrinate, but propaganda alone will not succeed. Independently thinking people should be terrorized into submission. So there is an ideology, a way to look at things, and both the ideologies of Hitler and Stalin are wrong. They are looking at reality in a particular way, or reducing complex reality into an extremely simplistic thinking, extremely simple idea. That is what Hana calls ideology. Ideology is not explaining the reality. Rather, the reality is being reduced to a set of ideas. And those ideas are forced on people through propaganda and through terror. So it is the ideology that is uniting people, converting men into one man, a totalizing experience. So to Hana, ideology, terror, propaganda, loss of personhood, and because of which evolution of the political system to perpetuate enormous violence. So this is how Hana looked at totalitarianism. Okay. But the problem with this thinking is that this is not completely wrong. There is some truth in it. But I believe there can be a simpler way of looking at things. That is, both Nazism and Stalinism can be simply looked at in terms of two components: personal dictatorship and othering phenomena. Othering. Personal dictatorship means a dictator controlling people, eliminating the people who can threaten his power. Hanan doesn't think totalitarianism is personal dictatorship. That is true. Totalitarianism is about control over ideas, not simply having power over people. So to arrive at totalitarianism, Hana thought of dissolution of personhood, whereas I am proposing that it is true totalitarianism is much more than personal dictatorship. But totalitarianism can be explained by adding one element to this personal dictatorship, that is othering. Othering means you create one group as the other. Like this. The practice of othering excludes persons who don't fit the norms of the social group. So, to Germans, Jews constitute the other. To Stalin, certain classes constitute the other. It is about the other. Hate generation is systematized. Hate is shared. It is spread over. Okay. So, othering plus personal dictatorship. So, what did Hitler do? He committed murders to keep himself in power. That is one. And then he made certain people as enemies and created a system eliminating them. And also out of that enmity, he also developed a political goal for Germans. So how they save themselves plus how they create hatred and use ideology to create this hatred, and justification in the to realize the ideology becomes the justification for their own personal dictatorship. People who are very close to Stalin have their family members sent to labor camps and where they perished, but still they were loyal because they believed that Hitler was on a great job. Sorry, Stalin was on a great job. The job of establishing communism. So, ideology strengthens personal dictatorship, and personal dictatorship enables imposing and implementing an ideology which really doesn't have an empirical basis. Not only anti-Semitism doesn't have empirical base. Same thing about communism. How is Marxian communism related to sending millions of people to labor camps? How can there be a justification for so much of violence in the name of communism? So Stalin's ideology has no justification like anti-Semitism. So personal dictatorship plus othering would explain totalitarianism. And in democratic countries also, othering happens without personal dictatorship. Take for example, how do you explain bombing of Japanese cities by the US? So much violence was committed by a democratic country, and US citizens approved. Was there a need? But American president is not looked the way Hitler and Stalin were looked. Why? Because this is a case of othering, and he convinced many people that they deserved, because after all the world war had to be stopped like that. So this is a case of othering plus democracy. America's case is this action took place because of othering plus democracy. So why the concept of othering is important is that othering means enormous ability to kill, to inflict violence on the other. You don't have to be a particularly cruel person. Every man is capable of inflicting violence on the basis of othering when he thinks that his actions are right. Hana, not only Hana, many people are disturbed by what Nazi officers did in concentration camps. For example, in one incident, an officer notices that a child is hidden in a suitcase, or the officer suspects. Then opens up the suitcase. Child is there, and he takes the child. And to stop him cry, he takes the child and hits him against the wall, and then the child dies, and so no more stopping. Enormous violence. Surely it is a very cruel act. So Hana wanted to know why people could do such things, and she understood that they were not doing as individuals. They were a part of a total system. But how about the violence inflicted on Japanese cities then? Many were killed. But is American president regarded as cruel? Did American citizens regarded as cruel? No. So the point is, we are all capable of doing something monstrous when we other a group, a country, and when we think we are justified in committing that for greater good. We don't have to lose our personalities to commit horrors. If you can see horror simply as deaths, or pain. So only when you think that why Nazis did that and what happened to them, it becomes very it becomes a case, very special case. But if you see that that is what anybody can do, anybody does when he when he sees the other as different, and out of punishing him, he's doing something, he's contributing to greater good. So thinking in terms of othering plus personal dictatorship as what constitute Nazism and Stalinism, I think is a more parsimonious way of looking at the so-called totalitarianism regimes. So totalitarianism has nothing but personal dictatorship over indoctrination of hatred against a group. That group can be a class or a race. Thank you.